Hey, it's your girl Carla Renata. I am back from the South by Southwest Film Festival. I avoided all the gunshots and everything. Can't wait to tell you all about it. Stay right there.
You're tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Yes, tune in right now. This is your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Film Critic. Scott Menzel is not here with me this week, but I do have a special guest co-host that will be joining me in just a few. Her name is Kathia Woods, and she is from the Cup of Soul show and was my hanging buddy down at South by Southwest in Austin at the film festival. So let's just dive right into it. Honey, last night, for the last night of the South by Southwest Film Festival, gunshots were ringing everywhere. Bullets was just flying. Thank goodness I got on a plane and got back to LA before all that madness happened. But they did catch the perpetrators. Only one person was injured, and thank goodness for that. And my girl Katya was not injured either, because the two of us were long gone by the time any of that happened. So what's going to happen today is we're going to do a recap, Katya and I, about the South by Southwest Film Festival. I'm going to talk about three or four other films really quickly that are coming out this week. One of them is called Ash is the Purest. Well, actually, before I do that, let me talk about The Mustang, because The Mustang is a new film by Focus Features that's coming out that stars Jason Mitchell, Matthias, I can't pronounce Matthias's last name, but Matthias, and it's directed by Laure de Clermont Tonniere. So let's take a look at this really brief interview I did with Jason Mitchell about the Mustang Horses and Black Cowboys in LA.
Chilling. How you doing?
I am doing great. Especially after I saw the Mustang.
Oh, wow.
Baby, I was full on in the ugly cry at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, I watched the movie and I knew exactly what was gonna happen, and I cried like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, oh man, I am too old for this. But yeah, it was definitely greater than what was on the page, and that really makes me happy. Matthias just really slam dunked it, man. It was a pleasure to be in the presence of a guy like that who takes it so serious.
Cowboy, but you know, most little kids, when they're little boys, they want to be cowboys and Indians. And all
Right.
And you know there's black cowboys in Los Angeles.
Absolutely, yeah. The Compton Cowboys actually worked with us on this film, yeah, and it was, it was a beautiful thing to see, you know, because some of these guys have really harsh backgrounds, but some of them have complete horse backgrounds. You know what I mean? Like one of them, he's a really cool guy. He has like dreadlocks down to the middle of his back, and he rides his horse all over Compton every day. You know what I mean?
Did you see that documentary, Fire on the Hill?
I did.
He's in that documentary.
Yeah. And he was just a really cool kid, you know, who I learned a lot from, actually, because I had no experience with horses. I was super terrified of horses. And these are guys with their own horses, you know what I mean? Showing up like, nah, we good, man, don't worry about it. We'll show you, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a good time.
What was the most memorable day you had training with that horse? Like, what was something that happened that you were like, oh, I hope this horse gonna like kick the wind out of me today?
Well, they have 3 different versions of the horse that Matthias works with. They have a super trained horse, they have a completely wild horse, and sort of an intermediate version of that. So I had to work with the intermediate version of that, but I had to basically be there when the horse is like rearing and be in complete control. You know what I mean? Like, it had to feel very frantic, but I had to be in complete control. And I was completely terrified. You know what I mean? Like, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, oh, this horse gonna come down on me, and it's gonna be the end of it. But everybody was really happy, and I was really excited, you know, for myself to be like, wow, I really have control of this. Like, all the things that I learned came into play in that moment, and to be able to really rock it, I was just super happy. Like, everybody was cheering for me, and it was a good moment. It was a good moment.
You look like you about to cry.
Right? I held it down.
Okay, you funny. What did you know about the Wild Horse Inmate Program before you started shooting this film?
I looked into it before I heard about it. Like, prior to, I'd heard about this sort of thing, but like with dogs. And I had never heard about it with horses before. And of course, me being terrified of horses, I would kind of try to create as much space as possible. But the horses actually do the same thing. They don't trust you as much, and they want to create as much space from you as possible. So I felt like we were kind of coming from the same point of view in life. You know what I mean? And we kind of created this bond, in our fears brought us together.
Oh.
So it was dope.
Well, that is my time, Brother Jason. Thank you so much.
All right. So good to see you.
I absolutely love when I get to introduce and interview Jason Mitchell because he is just absolutely lovely. We kiki, we hee, and we laugh and have a good time in the 2 or 3 minutes that I have with him. So thank you so much to Focus Features and to Jason Mitchell for letting me interview him in conjunction with the Mustang, which is coming into a theater near you right now. So having said that, let me move into these other films that I saw. Some of them are not related with the festival. Actually, none of them are. But one of them is this film called Ash is the Purest White. It is a Chinese film. It is so wonderful. And I don't believe you can see it anywhere but in Los Angeles right now, unfortunately. It's playing at the ArcLight Hollywood and at the Laurel Theater. But it is the most wonderful film. It is about these two Chinese people, Xiao and Ben, who fall in love. And they have the most violent, I don't even know what the adjective is to call their love affair, but they have this very torrid, violent love affair that results in them both ending up not being together. And I just absolutely adored it. It was directed very well. It was acted very well. It was a really beautiful, beautiful film. So if you were in the Los Angeles area, go check out Ash is the Purest White. Finding Steve McQueen. Now, for those of you millennials out there that might not know who Steve McQueen was, he was a huge movie star in the 70s, and he was mostly known for race car driving and for being involved with Ally McGraw, who is one of the co-stars of a film called Love Story from the 70s. But this movie is about this guy who it's like a caper, thriller, comedy, kind of like dramedy type of film that involves him. This guy looks a lot like Steve McQueen. He changes his identity and his looks to look like Steve McQueen to pull off one of the biggest heists in history. And he does so looking like Steve McQueen. It's silly, it's fun, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's a good time at the cinema. So check that one out, Finding Steve McQueen. The Hummingbird Project is another one that I saw. It stars Jesse Eisenberg. Now, you know Jesse and Salma Hayek and Alexander Skarsgård. Now, you guys know Jesse Eisenberg from his role as playing Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg on The Social Network. So you know he does these roles where he does this rapid fire dialogue really, 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 really fast. And he is an expert at it. That and the fact that Salma Hayek is playing like this hard-nosed, I'm going to take you out kind of boss named Eva Torres, those are the highlights of the film. The pacing of the film is a little slow in the beginning, but after after it gets going, once it gets its legs, it's really interesting to see. So I think it got into theaters on March 15th, so you can see it now. So all three of these films, Finding Steve McQueen, The Hummingbird Project, and Ash is the Purest White, are in theaters right now. Check them out if you have an opportunity. So now let me introduce my girl, Katya. Katya Woods is a influencer, film critic, blogger, host of Cup of Soul show. She's a member of NABJ, the National Association of Broadcast Journalists, and she is my friend. And I would like to introduce her because she is my special guest co-host coming in from Philadelphia today. Hey, Katya.
Hey!
Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, listen, this is, as you know, we were down there at South by Southwest, and then it took me 4 years to get home, and an additional gift of a cold. So I am just thankful to be able to not sound nasally.
Oh, girl, and I'm glad we got the gift of not being around those bullets. Did you hear about that?
The
shooting that happened? I was like, ooh.
I did not. What happened?
Girl, there was a shooting that happened in Austin, right in the heart of South by Southwest, right where the Paramount Theater is, like on 6th, and I forget what the cross street is, 6th and something, but like right in the heart of South by Southwest. Somebody just like started blazing like it was the Wild Wild West, and one person got injured.
Oh, no, can't do that. God must be looking out for me, because I left A3C, before there was stuff going on. And listen, no, I get out of Dodge before it gets crazy.
I know that's
Simple.
right. Well, let's get right into the conversation. Now, I know one film that we both saw and that we both loved was a documentary called I Am Richard Pryor. And it is directed by Jennifer Lee Pryor. And I know you had an opportunity to speak with Jennifer, right?
Yes, I did. Like, I said to her, so we had a really conversation. She was very open, you know, and to discuss some of the things. And I said is, you know, one of my curious things was Richard's relationship with women. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because, like, how was he towards women? Because he was very much an extrovert on stage, but off stage, he was very, like, if you look at certain interviews with him, he's very guarded, and he's not as, you know, because people think comedians are on 24/7. They're not. But I did ask her about how his relationship with women, like how, because of his upbringing, how did that affect him? Because, you know, he was married a couple of times.
You think? like he was married at least 5 times, I think. And he married Jennifer
That we know
twice.
of.
Yeah. And he married Jennifer twice. But this documentary was, I really liked the way that Jennifer went about doing it, because not only did she get people that had worked with him that knew him really well, like Lily Tomlin. I don't think she interviewed Paul Mooney, but she did get Lily Tomlin. She got Sandra Bernhard. And these are 2 comedians in their own right who worked with him that were really good and that really knew him well, like in the heart of all the madness, they knew him. So that was kind of cool to see that. And the other thing that was that struck me about that documentary is that she was able to provide us with a softer, more humanistic side of Richard Pryor than we had heard of before. Because she talked,
for sure. I mean,
because she talked about him
sure.
going. She talked about them going to Hana, Hawaii, and how that was a safe place for him. Child, I didn't even know he had been to Hawaii. I knew he had gone to Africa and decided not to use the N-word after he went to Africa. But I knew nothing about him going to Hawaii. I knew nothing about how he met her. I knew nothing about how their relationship began, and how, you know, and the details of that. So it was a more loving. It was a in your face, loving tribute to Richard Pryor, and it was something that I hadn't seen before. It wasn't like it wasn't like this tribute to all of his films. Like, we know what his films are. We know what films he did. We don't need to see all the clips from his films. I want to know about Richard Pryor, why it is aptly titled I Am Richard Pryor. What were your thoughts about it?
I think, you know, we needed to see more of the human side of him, and which I think we got. Like, you know, we don't think, when you think of Richard Pryor, you think of him partying nonstop, right?
Right.
But we got to see him, like, just chilling, fishing, just being in the moment, not having to worry about having to be Richard Pryor. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's really important. We got to hear him also on set, like, you know, basically you saw that he was there, but it's hard, you know. We talked a little bit about that, Jennifer and I, about the fact that people didn't realize he was a really good actor.
He was an excellent actor. Yeah, and this is another thing that people probably didn't realize. When he did Lady Sings the Blues with Diana Ross, there was huge Oscar buzz on him for that role because he was so good as Piano Man. Everybody thought that Diana was probably going to be the only person to walk away with Oscar buzz for that film, but he got major Oscar buzz for it. He didn't end up getting nominated, I don't think. I think Diana was the only person that got any shine from that, but he was an excellent actor. And P.S., he was also one of the first people to do those multiple characters. We associate that now with Eddie Murphy and with Tyler Perry and his Medea films, but Richard Pryor was the one who did it first.
Oh, I agree. Like, the fact that he gave you the different voices, the fact he gave you the personas, there's so much there. Like, I feel like Richard Pryor, you could do, like, a whole week of him, like a
right?
2-hour thing, and there'd still be time left because he was so fascinating. And the thing that I said to Jennifer, I said, I hope he realized, and you pray for it, right, that everything he went through, like fighting with the censors and all that other nonsense that TV, when you're great, when they try to put you in a box, I hope he realized that a lot of people today can you know, be crazy on TV because of him. Like the Chappelle Show certainly wouldn't have happened without a Richard Pryor
Absolutely.
and his comedy skit show.
Absolutely.
So I
And
hope
Chappelle wouldn't have watched off
got
his
to see
show.
that.
He wouldn't have been able to walk off his show because, again, Richard Pryor did that first. Richard Pryor was like, NBC was like, yeah, you can't do this kind of content. And he was like, okay, deuces. And he bounced. And then that gave, because it was already done, by the time Dave Chappelle did it on the Chappelle Show and walked away from $30 million, it was like, okay, we've seen this before, but not to this level. But somebody always has to set the precedence. There's always somebody that has to do it first, so it's not as hard for you when you do it. And look what happened. Dave Chappelle did that, and he came back stronger than ever.
He made it back in 5 minutes. Whatever he lost,
Absolutely.
he made back in that one Netflix special.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next one. I saw a documentary. You didn't see Knock Down the House, right?
I did not.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about Knock Down the House real quick. I saw this documentary called Knock Down the House, which centers around 4 women that ran for congressional seats around the country. And one of them was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who ended up being the only one from the documentary that actually won her race. And she's catching all kinds of hell right now. But I say, girl, raise some hell. You got the voice to do it. You are a woman up in Washington. Get it done, get it done, get it done. But I walked away from that documentary and I was fired up, mostly because one of my St. Louis homies, Cori Bush, ran against, there is a political dynasty in St. Louis called the Clay family. She ran against the Clay family. That in itself takes really big balls. So I give a big ups and a congratulations to Cori Bush for running against the Clay family. She did not win. But that is not, when I saw her in Austin, she was like, that is not going to stop her. She's like, I am a black woman with a big booty, and I am going to let everybody see what this big butt is and run again. That will not deter me, the fact that I lost. So I want everybody to check that documentary out. It is on Netflix. It is so good. If you are thinking about running for an office somewhere, this will be the thing that's going to tip you over the edge, because you'll see 4 different women from 4 completely different backgrounds going for it with gusto and doing so successfully, whether they won their seats or not. So the next documentary that I'm going to bring up is one that I know you saw, was the Boy Band Con about Lou Pearlman and his association with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. What was that like?
Can we just talk about how there's a theme with certain people, how they're just lifetime schemers? Like, he was a schemer from the rip. Like, he was high school, grammar school. He just adjusted the scheme. But every part of his life was pretty much, he was telling some type of fib.
Yeah, and then he died in 2016, right?
Yep.
After
so it wasn't like, he just, the way I thought it was before I went into it, I thought, maybe he was trying to reduplicate the group formula, that pop formula, too often, that he had overextended himself, and that's why he did the Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't recouping the money. But no, like, even the name of the business is called Transcontinental Airlines. There were no airplanes. There were no airlines. There was no airline. Everything was a lie.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was like the hard thing where you're just like, and kids, and he took advantage of children. Children's dreams,
Yeah.
that's unforgivable.
I saw a clip of Lance Bass talking about it, because he's the executive producer of the film. And I saw a clip of him talking about it briefly. And he mentioned the fact that Lou did stuff like he purposely squashed Backstreet Boys stuff. He squashed their stuff so that NSYNC could rise above them in the charts. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
You see them against each other.
That's a lot.
They talk about that.
That's a lot going on. Okay, moving on to the next one. Another documentary, Boy Howdy, about Cream Magazine. So for those people listening, tell us what Cream Magazine was.
Well, Cream Magazine was everything that Rolling Stone wasn't. They weren't in New York. They were in Detroit, and they talked about, like, the blue-collar rock and roll, especially rock and roll that was coming out of Detroit. For a lot of people that don't realize, there's a lot of good music that came out of Detroit, like Hits and so forth, and how it was just started and basically, run like a group of misfits. But what they did was really had their finger on the button of rock and roll, Midwestern rock and roll, and what people wanted to hear. And their goal was always to just remain there. The son of the founder made the documentary, and it was kind of like, you know, because his father died so young.
Mm-hmm.
The father died, I believe he was 37.
Mm-hmm.
So it was his way of saying, hey, I wanted to get to know my dad. And so working on this and getting to know the people that worked with him was his way of kind of like having some closure.
Okay. Now, I'm going to run into our last documentary for our show, for the purposes of our show today. And this one wore me the hell out. It's called The Inventor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. And it deals with Elizabeth Holmes, who, for most of the people listening or watching, you will know the face more so than the name. But this is the young lady who, at 19 years old, invented something that she believed was going to revolutionize the medical industry. She literally made the claim that you would be able to do several blood tests through one drop of blood, eliminating the need to have needles in your arm and draw blood that way. As somebody who is needle phobic, I was all over that. I was like, oh, I got to see this documentary. And I was like, well, what happened? Did it ever happen? Well, it happened, and at the height of this girl's company, which was called Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes' company, Theranos, was worth $80 billion at the height of whatever it was she was going through. She had people on her board that had strong military backgrounds, very powerful middle-aged white men like George Shultz and Henry Kissinger were on her board. And she brokered a multi-million-dollar deal with Walgreens, the pharmaceutical giant Walgreens. And the company was evaluated at $80 billion. Today, it's evaluated at zero. Her and her partner, Ramesh Sunny, I forget his last name, but her and Sunny have been indicted. They have not gone to jail. They have done depositions in regards to all of this. But this young lady was a trip because she literally conned a whole country, military personnel, political personnel, major giants in the Silicon Valley arena, that she could do this, had the technology and everything, but the technology was faulty. And she spent most of that $80 billion paying people back because the Walgreens actually instituted some Theranos labs. They were popping up Theranos labs on the Western Seaboard, right? And people were going in there getting blood tests done. People that were sick, people that had cancer, people that were diabetic, getting their blood tests done and getting faulty results back. She had investors like Betsy DeVos that were investing $100 million in her company. And the most interesting thing about this chick, when you watch this documentary, because it'll be on Netflix tomorrow night, the most interesting thing about her is that she never blinks. It's mind-boggling that she never blinks her eyes. I was like, what is happening right now? I cannot even. But it was amazing. So check it out. Now let's move into the narrative part of the festival. And I'm going to start with you with Stuber and Longshot because you saw those two films. I didn't have an opportunity. Well, actually, I saw Longshot. I was thinking about the other film. Longshot.
I didn't see Longshot, but I did see Stuber.
Okay.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Like, to me, I understood what they were trying to do. It seemed like it had a lot of potential, but at some point it got a little like repetitive for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, but Dave, yeah, I mean, it was nice to see him not green and with hair. Like, that was a little odd. We're so used to seeing him usually bald and so forth. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's funny, but the way that they're selling it is like another 48 Hours, that type of comedy, buddy picture.
A buddy film.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to live up to.
Okay.
So it was okay.
Okay, so I'll talk about Longshot very briefly. Longshot is about Kenny Sailors. And when you watch a basketball game, I naturally look at a basketball game, and when somebody, you know, does a jump shot, I just automatically, I think the movie's called Jump Shot, not Long Shot. But when you see a jump shot, you think, you know, that's just part of the game. But did you ever wonder where it comes from? I sure as hell didn't. And when I watched this documentary, which is produced by Steph Curry, about Kenny Sailors, this dude that was like in his 90s is the dude who invented the jump shot in 1943 during a game in I think Wyoming. During the NCAA state championships, he was the first one to do a jump shot. He has not been inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. When his peers and constituents tried to get him inducted, they turned him down. He has since passed away. I think it's a travesty and a shame and a disgrace that they will not acknowledge this man, and they have people in that Hall of Fame who have done less and contributed less to the game of basketball than Kenny Sailors. So up there in heaven, Kenny Sailors, I'm giving you a shout out right here on the Curvy Film Critic with Carla Renata at Black Hollywood Live, and letting you know that we acknowledge you, we appreciate you, and I appreciate everything that you did for the game of basketball, and so does Steph Curry, because he produced this documentary for you. So, having said that, I saw this other film called The Highwayman. Did you see The Highwayman? I don't think you saw that one either, did you?
I did not see The Highwayman.
Okay, I'll talk about that one real quick too. So The Highwayman is another film that's going to be on Netflix. It stars Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner, and it basically deals with the whole Bonnie and Clyde saga from the Texas Rangers' point of view. Because apparently the Texas Rangers got a really bad rap when they did the feature film back in the I think it was the 70s, the one with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. They got a bad rap. The Texas Rangers looked like they were stupid, like they were Keystone Cops or whatever. And the real person that did it was really upset. So Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson decided to produce a film telling it from their point of view, and to show that they weren't the Keystone Cops, that they did in fact have a plan and knew what they were doing. This film, the first half of it was kind of slow for me, but then once the action started, I was all in. And if you're into the whole Bonnie and Clyde saga and you're fascinated by that part of history, you'll love The Highwayman. And that's that. So I've been talking really fast because I want us to get to Us, honey, because I know we both saw that. So Us is a film by NBC Universal Pictures, which stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and is produced by Jordan Peele and written by Jordan Peele, who won his first Oscar for Get Out. This is his follow-up film. And if you're going to do a follow-up, I think Us is the perfect follow-up. And honestly, I think Lupita Nyong'o is probably going to end up being in the award conversation when we get down to it. Don't you think, Katya?
I think so. I mean, there's so much. Like, I walked out of there. Let me say, I think the movie's amazing. I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to go see it again because there was so much going on, and it was like sensory overload in a good way.
Yeah.
I have questions. I want to know, like, did she come up with the facial expressions? Did she come up with the voice, or was this a cooperation between her and Jordan? But the way that she was able to portray these two characters, and there's some scenes in there, I don't want to ruin it for folks, but there's some scenes in there that she just did beyond phenomenal work, where you're just like, ooh,
yes,
this is really spooky. But I really, I hope that people, because, horror movies have not done so well when it comes to award season.
Yeah.
So I hope people move beyond their biases and remember her, because what she did was really special.
Well, I think Jordan kind of changed the game up on that when he won the Oscar for writing Get Out. He switched the game up, and he's got the Twilight Zone coming out. So I think people are going to view the horror genre a little bit differently nowadays. It's getting a lot more play, and we seem to be seeing a lot more quality horror films coming out. And I felt like South by Southwest had like a horror theme to it this year. It opened with Us. It closed with Pet Sematary. In the middle, it had Lupita Nyong'o and Little Monsters. And I was like, okay, Lupita is like, she's like the Black Tippi Hedren for the horror genre right now. Because it was hilarious to me that she had two films that were horror-based at a film festival. But I agree with everything that you said about Us, without ruining it for people, because it does come out on March 22nd, which is in a little less than 2 weeks from now. That film is a little gorier than Get Out. So don't think you're going to see like some socially political horror film. It has a little bit of that to it, but it is not Get Out. So do not go to see Us thinking that you're going to see Get Out, because you're not. It is a straight up horror film, and I watch most of it peeking through my eyes, as I do when I go see horror films. I don't even know why I torture myself in that fashion and go, but I go and see them anyway. But it
Me too.
But it was great. I really enjoyed it. I love the Q&A afterwards, where Jordan Peele talked about how Us basically is a commentary on us. the people that are different, the immigrants that are being claimed to come into the country illegally and all that stuff. Who is us? And why are we running from us? And are we really running from us, or are we the ones who should be afraid? You know what I mean? Are we the ones that we should be afraid of? So it was this whole commentary that he did that I really, really, really enjoyed. Before we continue and we do our little sign off and talk about what you're doing real quick, I want to thank Yasna and Michael B in the chat room for hanging with a sister. They hung in there, honey, and they waited for us to come on the air, and I am so glad that you did. I'm so glad that you did. And you know what, you guys, for those of you who are in the chat room or watching the show right now or watching it after we finish broadcasting, go over to YouTube and give us some love. Go to Spotify, go to iTunes, give us those 5 stars on iTunes, give us some commentary. And if you watch the show on YouTube after the fact, or if you're watching it now, give me some love, give me some feedback. I am all about the feedback. I am all about being better. I'm all about serving you better and, talking about the things that you want to hear about. But I figured you wanted to hear about South by Southwest from a sister, so that's what we did today. So Katya, what are you up to next? What's coming up next for you? I think you're getting ready for Tribeca, yeah?
Yes, I was like, as those of you were maybe not aware of, but it took me 6 days to fly home. Like South by Southwest was holding us hostage. But yes.
And let's explain. They were holding hostage because of the situation with the 737s and them grounding planes.
Yes.
So that's what was going on.
Yes. They had us lining up like little school children and only to tell us, yes, but not yet. So I was just at the point was like, listen, I'm not getting out of my comfy chair until I see rows and whatnot being called. I didn't have the patience. It was
I know
crazy.
That's right. But what else you got coming up next? You have your Cup of Soul show. Tell people where they can find that.
You can go to everythingthecupofsoulshow.com. It is all no space, and you can see everything that I'm posting, interviews and things that I was doing down at South by Southwest. And yes, as Carla said, I will be at Tribeca, right back in the frying pan, end of next month. Right, I'm a glutton for punishment, but this time it's closer to home. And if definitely great movies and all of that, and just keep doing the work and doing reviews and meeting and talking to wonderful people like Carla. That's what I'm up to.
Katya, girl, I am so excited that you joined me today. I'm sorry that you're not feeling well. I'm sorry that you
That's okay.
went around the world and back to get home, and that was a little field trip for you, but at least you're home, you're safe, you'll be able to get better in the comforts of your own home with your hubby and your kids. But I thank you for taking time, because you're on the East Coast, so you're 3 hours ahead of us. It's a little later there than it is here in Los Angeles. So thank you for taking the opportunity and the time to talk to me here at Black Hollywood Live about South by Southwest. It was both of our first time. Well, it was my first time going. You had been before on the music side, but it was my first time going. It was an interesting little outing. I'm still processing how I feel about it, but
Amen.
but I still like most of the films that I saw. But in closing out, where can everybody find you on social media, Katya?
Everyone, you can find me personally and Kathia, Kathia, Woods, like Tiger Woods, with an S, please. And then everything, well, God bless them, but everyone, and then Cup of Soul show and everything that we're doing with the show and adventures. And yes, if you follow me on my personal stuff, you will see a lot of pictures of my dog. I am obsessed.
You are hilarious. Thank you, Katya. And for me, Carla Renata, you can find me across all social media platforms at The Curvy Critic. All of my mouth is not working with me. All of the reviews that I spoke about today and Katya spoke about today, you can find mine at thecurvyfilmcritic.com. You can find hers at cupofsoulshow.com, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
At cupofsoulshow.com. You can find me here every Sunday at 5 o'clock talking about movies. Sometimes Scott Menzel is here and sometimes he isn't. He's, running around to film festivals and doing some other things, but he will pop in from time to time, once or twice a month, and you'll see him here. But until that time, Join me over at the after show for General Hospital at AfterBuzz TV, and I will see you next Sunday, 5 o'clock at the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Thank you, Katya, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content, and be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.